So I guess we're at 7 o'clock, so we'll get our council meeting, our post-Thanksgiving council meeting underway. I'll call the meeting to order and welcome many of you joining us virtually. First item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And so I have a recommendation moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the agenda for the October 13th, 2020 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Any discussion on that agenda? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we're on to disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have none to declare. Councillor McCabe?
I do not.
Councillor Yates?
Nope.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. And a reminder, if you can declare at any point throughout the meeting as well. I guess next we're on to County Council update. And I just had a few things I wanted to share from County Council. One from our last meeting, I believe we had their County Council meeting after our last meeting, if I'm not mistaken. And the changes to the solid waste program regarding leaf and yard waste and those types of things were accepted by council and ratified, as we had talked about earlier in the month. So the county's revised program with the no charge drop off for yard waste at Riverston and increased frequency of pickup of those materials for next year and from then on. So those are positive, I think, changes for residents in our community and help to address many of the concerns that have been raised. I also want to talk about something that the County Roads Department is doing, is a roads master plan. They're calling it the road map, pun intended, I believe. And so this is a master planning process, a very large scale study looking at what our current and future needs of the roads network is. Some of the things that will be looked at are things around road safety, different users of the roads. One of the things that I think will get quite a bit of discussion is, the balancing the needs of road users. For instance, we have to make sure we facilitate both the passenger vehicle and commercial vehicle traffic so that things can continue to travel through our roads network. But at the same time, we have to balance that with safety, particularly through our urban areas regarding speed or space and sharing the roads from different users, whether it be passenger vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, commercial vehicles, all those things. It's, I think part of the big discussion will be around where is it appropriate to restrict traffic flow to facilitate those other road users, and when is it appropriate to make sure that our first priority is facilitating traffic flow. So while you guys may not be directly involved in it, I would encourage you to be aware of what's going on. There will be some public consultations. I think it's a really worthwhile exercise. And any information you have, I'm sure you have a network of information about people's impressions of our roads. Please feel free to share that and participate in that process. I think that was really the big highlight I wanted to talk about this evening, and I'd be happy to take any questions that any of you may have. Steve.
Just got a quick one, just when you said welcome our participation in this. Is it all virtual meetings, or how are they conducting that if we wanted to join in, or if any of the public even wanted to join in as well?
Yeah, there will be public consultation, and due to the COVID restrictions, yes, a lot of it will be done virtually, but if you're interested in participating or you know people who are, send them to the county website. There'll be updates there in terms of when those various milestones and consultations will be. This is a project that's expected to last about a year, so there's a number of steps and a number of things being considered. I did talk about, road safety. Well, one of the things that gets a lot of attention is excessive speed, intersection improvements needed, those types of things. You know, there are more problem intersections, and if they're at your attention, please feel free to bring those forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Doesn't have to be on this topic or other county projects. Okay, seeing no others, we'll move on. Now we've got some meetings under the Planning Act, so we need to move into recess for that of our regular council meeting. So I have a recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the regular council meeting of October 13th, 2020 for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act for a minor variance for 273-8330 Ontario Inc. and 2 zoning bylaw amendments, one for 257-457 Ontario Inc. and one for 207-3022 Ontario Inc. So all the numbered companies this evening are making applications. All those in favor? That's carried. So we are in recess now. So we'll move over to our Committee of Adjustment agenda. And for all present, I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. And we'll ask about the disclosure of pecuniary interest again. I have none to declare with regard to this application. Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor Yates?
No.
And Councillor McCabe?
None.
Okay, thank you. The application this evening is A08/20. This is for 273-8330 Ontario Inc. The location of the subject property is described as part of Park Lot 1 and is municipally known as 399 Main Street North, Mount Forest. The property is approximately 0.12 hectares in size. And in your package, there's a map that shows the location of the property. Purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the minimum parking requirements. The applicants are proposing to construct a new gas station, including a takeout and convenience store that will be providing 7 parking spots, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 9 parking spots. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How is notice given for this meeting?
Right. I think I lost our applicant. He had wanted to join. So notices, I'm hoping he comes back on. Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and signage was posted on the property on September 18th, 2020.
Okay. So Karen, should we just hold off a minute before we proceed? See if the applicant rejoins?
Hold on, okay, hold on, just give me a minute here. I think, here we go. Promote to panelist. So he's Abdul. Darren, can you correct me? Is he the applicant for this?
Yes, one of the people on the team, but I see his microphone is muted.
Yeah, I've asked him to unmute it. Yeah, he's not. I'm not sure. Because to leave our Committee of Adjustment, I believe we have to actually adjourn. Although I would suggest we could recess and move into our public meeting. I have his email address. I'm just going to send him a real quick email though.
Yeah, let's just pause for a minute and see if you can connect with him, Karen.
Um, So our policy is silent on having somebody attend who is not unmuted. We talk about if someone's not in attendance, so I'm not sure if you want to proceed. I mean, if we don't, this will have to be,
So just from a procedural perspective, Karen,
oh, all right, hold, I'm sorry. I just had an
Just-
email from him
okay?
to say his mic is not working, and can I bring another gentleman in? And that's the guy I cut off. Just a minute. So we'll just give his partner a chance to log back in again.
Okay. I was just going to ask Karen if we had to defer this because we couldn't get the applicant involved. Would we have to go through the notice procedure again?
Yes. Yeah. That's why it's really
Okay.
better if we can just give him a minute to get back on.
Yeah, no
I'm sorry,
problem. I just wanted to kind of be prepared for.
Yeah. And Matthew should probably comment on that. Sorry, Matthew.
Oh, no, by all means.
No, we'll just be patient.
Procedure-wise, if we're going to defer, if we decide to bring it back to the next meeting, we do not need to go through the notice procedure again.
Sorry, Darren. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have 3 people who have their hand up. I'm gonna suggest they're gonna want to ask a question, so I'll allow them to talk. I'm not
Okay.
sure if they want to form part of this meeting. They did not pre-register with me,
Okay.
and our procedure bylaw doesn't allow for that. Now, One of the individuals with their hand up is at the next public meeting, Mr. Wilson. So he has certainly registered. The other two haven't, so I would refer to the chair.
Okay.
And I don't know if it would be any different if anybody wandered into the council chambers. So I would recommend that we permit them.
Right. Okay.
All right, so Brad, I know you're here for the next application. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure you guys were able to hear me. I'm new to this, so
Yep.
just in case I had to switch to a laptop.
Yep. Galaxy S9, are you here for a public meeting?
Perfect.
Yes. Yes, I am.
And your name, please?
It's Norm North.
And which application?
This is regarding the gas station that's going in. Just had some.
Okay,
Just-
yeah, just, and then I'll get your details when it comes your time to speak, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Mr. DeBoer, are you here for a public meeting?
Are.
And which meeting is that?
That's to remove the holding pattern on the Wall Street subdivision.
Okay, so we're not at that point yet, so if you can just sit tight, I'm gonna mute you for now. And I'm gonna mute Brad for now. And Mr. North, you're here for this application. And the other, Abdul's associate, that's a good word for it. Mr. Mansouri is on the line. Could you unmute yourself, please? So I've just sent the proponent an email just asking him if he could have Mr. Mansouri unmute himself.
Okay.
Haley, I know you're here for a different application, so I'm going to put you on mute for now.
Sure, no problem.
Yes, I do.
Good evening, Karen. Did you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mansour. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we're ready to go again, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So we're at the point now where we're going to ask Matthew to do his presentation. So if you wouldn't mind taking it away, Matthew.
For sure, will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Lennox. You summed it up pretty well, so I'll just do a quick little recap. But the application before you is a minor variance to provide relief from the minimum parking requirements. The applicant is seeking relief to facilitate the construction of a new gas station with a restaurant and convenience store component, a restaurant takeout, I should say. The applicant is proposing 7 parking spots, whereas the bylaw requires 9. All in all, planning staff are of the opinion that the request is minor in nature, meets the intent of the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw. One additional piece to add, although it isn't incorporated, oh, sorry, I got a little echo there. Although it isn't incorporated in calculation, hypothetically, if all 7 spots were to be taken, an informal space could be used behind each of the pumps. Should this scenario ever arise where all 7 were taken. So with that said, happy to take any questions.
Okay. Thank you. So has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Other than what's already listed on the agenda, which is from Wellington Source Water Protection and the Saugeen Conservation Authority, with no objections. There's been nothing further received.
Okay, thank you. Any persons wishing notification of the decision must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer. And that's you, I believe, Karen?
That's correct.
So I'll open the floor for any comments or questions. I'll first go to the applicant or applicant's representative. Do you have anything further you'd like to say at this point?
Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening, everybody. No, actually, we explained everything as far as the we're doing a lot of improvement to this corner of the road, and my client is spending a lot of money as far as currently there's an existing restaurant which doesn't have a lot of parking. It's a sit-down restaurant, but this is going to be a takeout. Only it's going to be a Mr. Sub inside. And we're going to have lots of fuel positions. So that's going to be about 6 parking there. And we accommodated about 3 parkings, including accessible parking for barrier free. And we're going to do a lot of improvement at the boulevard. We are working with the town staff and also with the county. And pretty much everything has progressed, and that's the only thing is as far as that not meeting the requirement of the zoning bylaw, which is requiring for 9 parkings, but we're accommodating 7, and we looking for relief for that shortage of parking. And also this building has a residential on the 2nd floor. And my client is willing to remove the residential due to the fact that the zoning bylaw does not allow. So we're going to be converting the top just to be a storage. And in order to accommodate the parkings, we also were chopping or were decreasing the size of the actual building. So we're taking about 1/3 of the building in order to accommodate for the accessibility and barrier-free parking.
Okay, thank you. And we do have, is it Mr. North, Karen, that wanted to speak?
It's Norm North, who is shown as Galaxy S9. I don't have an address or contact information for Mr. North.
Okay, you have him unmuted?
He is unmuted, and Mr. DeBoer had also raised his hand, so he's unmuted at this point. He was going to speak about the application for the holding provision, so if we can get Mr. North's information right now.
Okay, you with us, Mr. North?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what information do you need, Karen?
An address.
Okay.
I'm at 403 Main Street North, right opposing the gas station.
Thank you.
Okay. So go ahead, Mr. North. You have the floor.
My biggest concern was basically the traffic and safety that this gas station is going to generate for the surrounding houses that are right here. As if anybody's familiar with this corner, it's a very busy corner at any given time. This is going to basically impede anybody that lives within the vicinity at any point, it's difficult to even back out of our driveway on a good day. This was news to me when this was brought as a letter, that there was going to be such a place put in. Even when it was a restaurant, it did not have the volume of traffic and such that a gas station would generate. So it is concerning more of like a safety issue for the children that are walking to school here. Has anybody addressed anything like this so far?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Mr. North, in terms of the
Actual facility itself being put there. As you are aware, there are like an abundance of gas stations already in Mount Forest, and personally, I'm just not seeing the need.
Mm-hmm. No, I perhaps Darren, if you could jump in here too. I think it is already zoned commercial, and if other than this parking variance, they could convert it to parking or to a gas station at any particular time because it already is zoned appropriate for that. Is that correct, Darren?
That's correct, Mayor Lennox. If it weren't for the need for relief for the parking spaces, there would not have been a public process for approval.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So pretty much anything can go in there then. Okay.
Anything that meets the commercial requirements that's already set up for, which the restaurant was.
Okay.
Sorry, can I add to that and interject here? Sorry. We have done a traffic study and has been submitted to the town and also the town consultant and has been reviewed, and we have done our homework. So it's not going to be as far as the traffic and the concern that this gentleman has or any of the residential area, it's going to be any impact. So we have done a traffic study, a full traffic study, which was submitted and was approved by the town consultant.
Okay, thank you. Mr. North, did you have anything further?
No, I guess that was it.
Okay, thank you. Now you said you had someone else on the line, Karen, that maybe perhaps wanted to comment?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Mr. DeBoer had his hand raised. Mr. DeBoer, were you wanting to speak on this application?
No.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to mute you again.
Okay, so we don't have anybody else pre-registered to speak on this, Karen.
No, we don't.
Okay, so then we'll move on to questions and comments from the committee. And Sherry, I did see your hand up. I just was trying to get through the other formalities before I got to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my question, and I'm going to direct this to, I'm not sure who the best person is, maybe Matthew or the applicant. Access to this new commercial space. Will it have access both off of Main Street and Sligo Road like it's open now, or will it just have one access?
Yeah, so I can answer that. I'm just looking at the site plan right now, which is provided in my report actually. So if you can scroll through or flip through the agenda, it's on page 2 of my report, but there is access both from Sligo and Main Street as well.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't really clear for me, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
And can I add also into this? Currently, the entire on Main Street, everything is all open. So you can enter to the site from any location you want. So it's a strip of asphalt approach and concrete that you can enter to the site. So we worked with the town and the town engineer, and we minimized the size of or the width of the entrances from both streets.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Dan, go ahead.
I guess in regards to Mr. North's question in regards to the traffic issue, anybody that's been up there on a weekend especially, there is a lot of traffic there. Has there been any talk with changing the way the lights function up there in regards to delayed lighting or turning signals at all? And I don't know if I'll pass that on to Matt. Maybe he can answer that.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. That'd be a question for the roads department. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately.
Okay, we'll go to the other Matt. I think maybe he has some comment.
That's the matter.
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I think for sure the township engineer has looked at this application mainly from a Main Street standpoint because Sligo Road is a county road. I do think there's some risk as it relates to the queuing of vehicles on Sligo Road, but really that's something that the county needs to comment on. But we can change the traffic light around to accommodate it the best we can.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any follow-up to that, Dan? Go.
Well, yeah, I guess I'd appreciate that follow-up with, I guess, is it the MTO that you would deal with in regards to that, Matt? I mean, we all know how congested it can be there right now. Now we're going to add in a gas station and convenience store. It's going to get even more congested. So I think that there needs to be some kind of work done on the way the stoplight system works on that corner.
Okay. But that's really outside of the scope of this application, other than this application is going to spur it along.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. But I'm just trying to address Mr. North's question or concern in regards to traffic. Gets followed up.
No, I appreciate that. I have some concerns around that as well, but any further questions from the committee in regard to this application? Okay, I just have a couple as well I'd like to address, and really they're location related in my view as well. I mean, those are busier roads, both Sligo Road and Main Street. And the potential, we've seen potential problems elsewhere in town with vehicles queuing on the street as opposed to having space to park in the premises of the business. I understand that, there's some potential overflow spots that could be used that are not designated parking spots, but there's really no space or accommodation for on-street parking anywhere near this for anyone who wants to access that restaurant. So has the applicant had any further thoughts about where that overflow could go if it were to occur?
Just to answer to your question, sir, this is not going to be a sit-down restaurant. It's a takeout, like every other gas station. When you come and fuel at the pump, and you just go and pay your money, or you buy a drink, or you buy a sandwich. So it's going to be very short-term parkings for all the customers that are going to be stopping there. So it's not going to be a sit-down restaurant that the people are going to come and park there, and then we're going to be running out of parkings for people to park there and go inside and sit down. So this is just a takeout, and it works like every other gas station for a quick in and quick out.
Okay. And then the other question I had was with regard to obviously, as you sell gas, you're going to have to replenish it. So there needs to be access for tankers to get in and around. I wasn't clear from the reports where that would be occurring. I hope, if a tanker's sitting there, it's not going to interfere with sight lines around that intersection as well. So if someone could comment on that, I would appreciate it.
Actually, we run a truck turn. It's a software. And we worked that also with the town engineer and also the town. So the truck, the way it's going to come, it's going to be a night. They're coming during the night, after hours. So it's not going to be during the day and during the busy hours to block the traffic or the customers to get at the fuels. So it is going to be an after hours, and the truck easily gets in and out, and that's how we have designed approaches. and all the arcs for the entrances and exits.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. So I guess we're on to decision time. So I'm gonna call for a vote, but first I'm gonna read this, that the minor variance applied for an application A08/20 for the property described as part of Park Lot 1 and municipally known as 399 Main Street North, Mount Forest, to provide the following relief. Number one, that a reduced parking regulation of 7 parking spots be permitted for a proposed new gas station with a convenience store and takeout restaurant component, whereas the bylaw requires 9 parking spots. All those in favor? That's carried, so that's approved. Again, anyone wishing notice needs to inform the Secretary Treasurer in writing, official notice. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our Committee of Adjustment meeting. So we're going to adjourn our Committee of Adjustment meeting. So moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. The Committee of Adjustment meeting of October 13th, 2020 be adjourned. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're adjourned from the Committee of Adjustment meeting. We'll now move over to the public meeting. There's 2 applications in our public meeting this evening for a zoning amendment. And I'll call the public meeting of October 13th to order. And sorry, members of council, we're going to go through the disclosure of public pecuniary interest thing again. I don't have any pecuniary interest to declare. Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor McKay?
No.
Okay, thank you. So our first application, the owner applicant is 257-4574 Ontario Inc. The location of the subject land, the land subject to the proposed amendment is described as Park Lot 3, south side of Birmingham Street, and located just west of the property at 475 Wellington Street East, geographic town of Mount Forest. The property is 2.32 hectares in size, and location is shown on the map attached in your package. Purpose and effect of the application. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject land from residential R2 zone to residential R3 zone to facilitate increased density and the construction of a 6-unit row townhouse. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How was notice given for this meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and as well to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on October 2nd, 2020.
Great, thank you. Matthew, could you give us a presentation on this, please?
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, this application is before us as a zoning bylaw amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from R2 to R3. The applicant is proposing to build a 6-unit street townhouse. The application is before us today simply due to the fact that the R2 zone permits a maximum of 4-unit street townhouses, and they're proposing 6. Council should note that in my report, a conformity exercise was done for this proposal, which checked all the boxes. Additionally, just recently, the applicant has submitted a site plan in conjunction with this application and the 4-unit townhouse that he's building just east of the subject property. So at this stage, I will be reviewing the finer grain details of the proposal. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any further correspondence been received in respect to this application? You're muted, Karen.
Sorry. There's been no further correspondence other than what's listed on the agenda, which is from the Upper Grand District School Board, Wellington Source Water Protection, and Saugeen Conservation Authority, all of which expressed No objection.
Okay, thank you. So the bylaw will be, regarding this application, will be considered at the regular council meeting following this public meeting. Any persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that said, I will open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. So I think the applicant, Mr. Wilson, you're with us. I'll let you have the first crack at it.
I'm here. No, I have no comments. I think Haley's put something together.
Okay.
No comments. I think Haley's put something together.
Okay. So we have someone else speaking on your behalf, Brad?
Hello?
Hello?
Yep, there she is.
Oh, hi, sorry. Haley Keese from Van Harten Surveying. I mean, Matthew kind of summarized the proposal quite well, but I'll just give a quick recap. So 3 consent applications were recently approved for the property. And we were asking for rezoning on one of those severed parcels from R2 to R3 to permit the 6 townhouse units. The R2 zoning only permits a maximum of 4 townhouse units, which is why the R3 designation is required. And all the zoning requirements will be met for those townhouses. And the remainder of the parcel will continue to be zoned R2 and future development for the other severed and retained parcel. And this zone change is required to satisfy a condition of the approved severance, and it'll allow for the continuation of the development of the property, which will enhance the area and provide alternative housing in Mountain Forest. So yeah, Brad is on the line as well, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else registered to speak on this application, Karen?
No, not on this application. Mr. DeBoer is for the next one.
Okay. So then I guess we'll move on to any comments or questions from council. Anybody have any questions, comments?
None from me.
Okay. So I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So there's a 4-unit townhouse would have been permitted without this zoning change. The 6-unit is proposed. I'm assuming that the 6-unit row townhouse is being proposed just because of the space or the sizing of the lot makes the 4 impractical to do anything else with. Is that so? So just clarification around that, if I could.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further from council? Okay. So I guess that brings us to the end of that application. As I mentioned before, we will be dealing with the bylaw after we finish the public meeting here. We have one more application to deal with, and then we'll go back into our council meeting and be dealing with the bylaw related to that one. Okay, so our next application is the owner applicant is 2073022 Ontario Inc. Location of the subject land, the land subject to the proposed amendment is described as West Luther Concession 1, Part Lot 1, Chadwick and Anderson Survey, Plan 120, lots 118 to 121, Part Lots 110 to 113, 122, 169, 170 Part Lorne Ave, located in the town of Arthur. The subject property is 9.95 hectares in size, and as usual, it's shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to remove the holding symbol from a portion of the subject lands to permit the construction of a model home. The holding symbol has been applied to the property in order to provide council with an opportunity to ensure that sufficient municipal water and sewer capacity is available for the use. Once the holding symbol has been removed, the regulations of the R2 zone and all other applicable regulations of the Township of Wellington North zoning bylaw 66-01 shall apply to the lands subject of this amendment. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as to the applicable agencies. and signage was posted on the property on September 18th, 2020.
Great, thank you. Matthew, could you give us the rundown on this one, please?
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, summed it up well, so I'm just going to make it brief. The H, as you mentioned, is in place to ensure that sufficient municipal services are available upon removal of the H on the smaller portion of the property, subject of this amendment. Again, as you mentioned, the R2 provisions would apply once it is removed. So township staff have confirmed that services are available for the model home. And additionally, the applicant is aware that they will need to remove the H on the remainder of the subject lands for the further development of the subdivision. With that, any questions are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Yes, listed on the agenda is the Wellington source water protection with no objection. And today we received from the GRCA an email saying they will not be commenting on the application.
Okay. Thank you. Again, anyone wishing a formal notice of the decision can request it in writing. But again, the bylaw will be considered at a regular council meeting following the public meeting this evening. I now open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. So do we have the applicant on the line or someone representing them, Karen?
Yes, you do.
You're muted, Karen.
No, I'm not sure if Mr. DeBoer is representing them or Mr.
Yes,
DeBoer?
I am, Karen.
Okay, and you are with?
Yeah, I'm here. Pinestone Homes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would you have anything you'd like to add to this application at this point?
Basically, it's just in order to get a foundation in prior to winter frost. We realize permits will be available in the new year, but this is just to beat the winter rush here, sort of thing.
Okay. Is there anyone else registered to speak on this application, Karen?
No.
Okay, so we'll move it over to members of council. Any questions or comments from council?
I have none, Andy.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any either. So I guess that moves us to the end of our public meeting. So we'll adjourn a public meeting and then move back to our regular council meeting. So I have a recommendation here that moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry, that the public meeting of October 13th, 2020 be adjourned at 7:48 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're adjourned from the public meeting. I'll shift my papers around and we'll get back to our regular council meeting. So we'll resume our regular council meeting. I've got a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that the Council of Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the October 13th, 2020 regular meeting of council. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So now we're going to deal with the bylaw from those items in the public meeting. So I have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that bylaw number 85-20 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. And again, this is in regard to Park Lot 3, Southside Birmingham Street, geographic town of Mount Forest for 257457 Ontario, Inc. Any questions or comments on that bylaw? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And our second one here, recommendation moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan, that bylaw number 86-20 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. This is in regard to West Luther Concession 1, Part Lot 1, Chadwick and Anderson's Survey Plan 120, Lots 118 through 121, part lots 110 through to 113, 122, 169, 170, part Lorne Avenue, geographic town of Arthur. After that mouthful, anybody have any questions or comments? All those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. So this brings us to our adoption of our minutes from the previous council meeting. So I have a recommendation here moved by Dan, seconded by Steve, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on September 28th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a couple of items rising from previous meetings of the council. So there's a resolution regarding support for fair and equitable assessment system for all aggregate resource properties. And does anybody want me to read the whole recommendation? I have moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. Does anybody need it read? Okay. So I'll open the floor for any discussion on that resolution. Anybody have any questions or comments? Steve?
Just a quick one. Is there any kind of a timeline on when MPAC and all of this is going to be looked at again? Or I see Mike's eyes widen like a kid at Christmas. So just wondering if there is any timeline, Mayor Lennox.
So I can't speak to a specific timeline other than that Wellington County has been spearheading this effort with the Ministry of Finance and MPAC to look at this. They've had some meetings with the Ministry of Finance officials and MPAC officials, as well as members of the Ontario Sand, I can't remember the whole title, but Sand and Gravel Association. And they're hopeful that this will make its way towards the top of the list for the Ministry of Finance to deal with. I'd say it's an ongoing initiative. In answer to your question.
Okay, no, I just was curious, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So just to provide a little background comment as well, the county was looking at this issue and discovered a number of gravel pits with fairly large licenses for removal, which are using roads and which were paying less property tax than single family dwelling nearby. And so it seems a little bit out of balance in terms of the methodology for taxation. And this is just our opportunity to put our weight of support behind that to make sure that the aggregate operations pay an appropriate and fair amount of taxation and hopefully get the methodology adjusted to accommodate that. So if there's nothing further, then I'll call a vote. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we have a couple of notice of motions from Councillor Yake. So 2A, the London Road concerns. I'm assuming, Dan, you're going to be the mover for this. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North directs staff to prepare a report on London Road, including but not limited to pedestrian speed, road condition, maintenance, and future plans. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Burke, thank you. With that in place, I'll open the floor for discussion. Dan, would you like to have a crack at it?
Sure. Yeah, I think just with the amount of development that's proposed in that general area, I think that we need to have just a report in regards to a few issues that may come up over the next little while. That road, London Road, has certainly got a lot more traffic. It's being used, I think, as a bypass around Mount Forest. There's large trucks use it. There's large farm vehicles use it. And there's more and more traffic coming from that end of town, north end of town, or Southgate, and using it as a bypass. So all I'm really looking for is just a report as to what the future plans for London Road are. The other thing I'd like to add in there too is dust control. I think that's one of the issues that's going to come up if development continues and it continues to stay as a gravel road. So that's all I'm asking, just for a report from staff in that regard.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment on that?
I have no comment.
Okay. Karen, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, rather than amend the resolution to include dust, can we include the dust under the maintenance?
Sure. Is that okay with you, Dan?
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I support having a staff do a report on this as well, Dan. I think you referenced the amount of development that's happening there, and certainly that creates challenges for what we do with that road in terms of putting asphalt on it or not, because we haven't got a lot of services in big sections of that road. So at what point do we spend the money on services underneath before we put a top on it? So yeah, I think it's completely appropriate that we have some discussion around that and look at what we think the future holds there.
Okay.
So any final questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And so we'll move on to your second one, Dan. Again, I'm going to assume you're going to move it. Recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North directs staff to prepare a report on the county waste management program regarding fall leaf and brush pickup in Arthur and Mount Forest, including the communication strategy and effectiveness of the program. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Burke, thank you. So with that, I'll open the floor for comments or questions. Dan, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you and County Council for and staff for removing the cost of the landfill site for waste that's delivered by local residents and extending the program. I think that's a great it's just a good news story, and I've heard of lots of people have been taking advantage of it since, you know. So that's, having said that, though, I'm still looking for clarification in regards to the loose leaf pickup in Wellington North. We still haven't really clarified how that's going to work. There's lots of people I've been contacted, I'm sure Sherry's been contacted as well, that are still wondering what's going to happen in regards to loose leaf pickup. I think we're in the middle, well, I know we're in the middle of October. Some are raking their leaves to the curb, some are putting them in bags. People are talking about 100 bags or more, and I don't know if it's appropriate that I don't think it's appropriate that we make them put them all in bags. I think this, the loose leaf pickup program has worked well for a number of years, and I think we need to continue it to some degree. And I'm disappointed that we haven't adequately maybe informed Wellington North residents as to what's going to happen with that pickup. So again, I'm still looking for clarification in how we're going to handle it, and am concerned about the fact that we're already in the middle of October.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Any other questions or comments? Sherry, go ahead.
So I've had a lot of positive comments with the book, and it gave the residents the information that they needed. However, just to echo Councillor Yake's comments, over the weekend, and I received another email today, there are neighborhoods that have a lot of very mature trees. And it's going to take a lot of either trips or bags to bag the leaves. So I guess we've had some conversation about, you know, if they're raked out there, whether they're going to be picked up or not. And it's gone so far as some people have put up fences. They're doing everything that they can to block the leaves because they consider the leaves to be on our trees. So they're our leaves, they're our responsibility to get rid of if they don't pick them up. So I guess, yeah, we need to know, one, what's going to happen to those leaves that don't get picked up, and also to go back to the verbiage in the I'd like to have some type of timeline attached to this report so that if we feel that this program didn't work for Wellington North, that we have time to readjust it for 2021.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I don't want to, I mean, this motion is requesting a report which will give us more fulsome information, I expect, so I don't want to jump in ahead too far on that, but I think we are in a transition between the program that we've offered locally to a county offered program that deals with leaf and yard waste pickups now throughout, or for most of the year. So I think there's a lot of efforts being made by county staff and to inform the public as to what's happening and trying to share that information, which I have been privy to, and perhaps other members of council haven't had as much access to. So I think there's real value in sharing that information with everyone. And then I guess the question that we're going to have to deal with is, you know, once we have that information, then what's our next steps? What steps are we prepared to take? What resources are we prepared to expend to help deal with this issue? So I think it's too early to talk about that specifically. I think we need to wait for the report and then we can get into some of that in a bit more. But I too have had some phone calls from people expressing concern and the comment about, you know, on trees on township property or not on township property. And that's kind of a difficult situation because, I mean, those residents benefit from the shade and the appearance of those trees on township properties. And so do they not have some responsibility to share in the maintenance of that as well is a great question. So I see Matt's turned his camera on. Did you have some comments you wanted to add, Matt?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, just from a township staff standpoint, yeah, I think this is the first year of the county program, and certainly brown paper bags are a great way to get rid of leaves, but ultimately township staff will fall in line to whatever township council decide, I guess is all. And I'm here for questions too.
Okay, thank you. Steve, I see your hand up there.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Lennox. I guess if we're going to have a report, I wonder if some information about what other municipalities do might be useful in comparison to what we are doing or what we aren't doing, or what they are doing and what the other township and municipalities are doing as well. Is that possible, Matt or Mike?
I'm seeing Matt nodding his head, so I'm assuming that'll be part of his report.
Thank you.
Any other question? Dan, go ahead.
You know, I don't disagree with the report idea, but again, we're in the middle of October, right? Leaves are falling, people are cleaning up their yards. They don't know what to do with them. I don't know why we need to try to reinvent the wheel here. If I rake my leaves to the curb and they're blocking a gutter or a storm drain, what's going to happen? Are we just going to pick up that little bit on a storm drain, or are we going to pick up all the leaves? I think that's what people are looking for. They want clarification now in regards to what the municipality is going to do to loose leaves that are put at the curb. Eventually, the township's going to go along with our own sweeper and pick up all the leaves that are in the curbs. So I think that we have not done a good job at letting people know how this is going to change, or if it's going to change. And we're right in the middle of this particular season, and a report is going to be good, but it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. And I think we're asking too much of people to put leaves in hundreds of bags. Some of these lots are going to use hundreds of bags to put, and it's physically almost impossible to do that. And I think we just need the clarification. And I think really what I'd like to do, I'd like to propose that we at least do one cleanup of leaves this year, and then give us more time to talk about this. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about this in October. We should have been talking about this in June, in July. So that's what I'd like to propose.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think about this from a procedural perspective. So we have the notice that really talks about a report. I think what you're suggesting, Dan, goes beyond what's in the notice of motion at this point. So is that a separate motion? Is that an amendment? I'm just struggling with trying to figure out how to deal with that. So Mike, I'm going to let you take a crack at it, and then Dan, I'll get back to you. Go ahead, Mike.
So through you, Mayor Lennox, yeah, I think the report is not, I think the question has been from Councillor Yake is, what are we doing with loose leaves? And from a staff perspective, the conversation starting back in June was leaves needed to be bagged or put in bins in order to be picked up as part of the county program. That was the message, and that has been the message throughout. And I think Councillor Yake would state that that message has either not been well communicated or is not sufficient, that program is not sufficient for what needs to happen, particularly in Mount Forest. So that's the issue, is whether or not the township is going to supplement the bag and bin program with loose leaf pickup. Loose leaf pickup is not in bags. It's raked, as Councillor Yake said, basically to curbside or onto the road. We've all seen the piles that occur. And to date, township staff's answer to that is, no, we are not picking those up, because we wanted the program that the county was implementing to be taken into account and be utilized. But the question now is, or I think, and Councillor Yake will correct me, I'm sure, is that that is not sufficient. The program offering that the county is going to implement on pickup dates October 26th and November 23rd is not sufficient. And that's really the issue. Not a report. It's loose leaves that are dragged either to the boulevard or the curb. Who's going to address them?
Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Well, I agree. It's not sufficient. That's the easy way to put it. It's not a sufficient way of handling this situation. And again, I don't think we've adequately dealt with the loose leaf situation. I mean, I just don't know how we need to deal with it this year. We can't let piles of leaves sit on the street for the winter, which people will do. They'll leave them there. and we need to address it. And if this is just you know, if we can somehow look after it and still continue to discuss it and figure out a way to handle it, then so be it. But I just, like I said, there's too many. We're asking too much of people to rake these yards, put their leaves in a bag. They're getting one pickup basically in October. How many people do you know are going to be out raking their leaves at the end of November? So we need to address it, and I'd like to see, again, you know, township staff continue with this program. It's worked and it's needed.
Steve, I saw you with your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I guess when you ask Dan, like, how much do we ask of our residents? I guess my response, my response would be, what's the municipality's responsibility for people's leaves on their own properties? Like, how far do the township workers and staff have to go to I guess meet the residents? And I understand the county's program maybe isn't as sufficient as it maybe should be, but I don't know how much more we can do.
Dan, go ahead.
If my leaves blow into the gutter, Steve, they blow from my backyard into the gutter. Who's cleaning them up? The town's going to clean them up eventually, right? You can't control them. There's no control. You know, they go from I wait all year for my neighbors to come to my yard, and then I hope that a big wind will come up and blow them to the neighbor's yard. But it doesn't work that way. Eventually, you got to clean them up. So,
I guess that's my point exactly, is yeah, you have to clean them up.
well, I don't know, it's just, the county program isn't sufficient for what we're looking to do in Wellington North, in this particular sense.
Okay. So, I guess what you're saying, Dan, is that, if I can try to articulate this, that, I mean, we made the decision back in June or July or whatever it was when the county program came out that we were going to endorse the county program so that we could, the county was already going to expend the resources to deliver that program. We thought that we could back away from adding local resources to that as well. And I guess what you're saying is that we still need to add those local resources to this particular issue. The problem I have, or that I struggle with this, is the balance between those people who are accepting of the county program, are out there bagging their leaves and their yard waste and so on and doing those things. And then we're going to go out back and offer this additional service. Aren't we effectively just asking everybody to go back to the way we did it before and not then taking advantage of the county program?
Well, you know, there's a lot of people that don't have to deal with this situation, but there's others that have to. So somehow, you know, and some have to deal with it on a smaller degree than others. So I don't know. It's just I don't know where we go.
Sherry?
Yeah, so I think part of the problem is I agree, we did endorse the county program, but I also think that the communication pieces came out way too late. The Wellington Advertiser piece, and say what you want about how it was available on the website and it was available on whatever social media platform that you use. We have a lot of residents that don't use social media to get those types of communications. Last week, I had people thank me for the communication that had finally seen it. I hadn't seen it yet because my Wellington advertiser hadn't been delivered. But the communication piece came out too late, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that it might be appropriate for us to do one sweep and continue to promote the county program, because again, we had to wait. And I'm not saying that the county didn't do a good job. I think that, you know, I think it's great that our residents can take the yard waste, those that have the ability to do that for free. But I think the communication piece was lacking. Those communications should have been out long before we got into fall. The leaves are falling now. So I think if we could come to some sort of compromise, if you will, there are lots of people, you're right, Mayor Lennox, that have applauded the program, the fact that they can take their waste for free when they want. But we also both that maybe we need to bridge the gap a little bit for.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to you, Dan. I mean, the notice of motion is really asking for a report. Do you still want to have that report, or do we want to just deal with this issue of adding an additional pickup?
Well, the report is fine, because we all need to know how it's worked, right? We all want to know if it's working moving forward and if changes need to be made. I'm just saying that, well, you've heard, you know, I think whether it's through an amendment or another notice of motion, that the loose leaf issue needs to be addressed.
Okay. I saw your hand, Sherry, but Karen, you want to add something to the process here?
No, go ahead, Councillor Burke, and then I will comment on the process.
Okay.
Through you, Your Worship.
So I think that a report of some sort is a good idea, because if we decide to bridge the gap once, I'm not suggesting that it's twice, it's one time, but I think we need to know what areas, you know, was it the whole municipality that needs to be, certain areas within our communities that we had to pick up leaves because of the amount of trees, or do you know, is there more seniors in that area? Just to try and get a gauge as to, you know, maybe what areas need some more communication, whether, you know, we need to do more printed material so that seniors are getting those communications effectively. So I think that if we go to a report, I think that needs to be part and parcel to it.
Okay. Steve?
I'm just going to say the report would be good or whatever, but what date would you use for the final pickup, or the one and only pickup, if we were to decide as a council or municipality to actually go and pick up once after the county program is done for the year? I don't know how you pick a perfect date.
Okay. Dan?
I don't know how you do either, Steve, but I think once the, you know, maybe a lot of people will buy into the fact that, okay, I'm going to put some in bags. So they put them in bags. The county will pick them up. They're still going to have leaves left between October, I'm not 23rd, I think is the date, to the end of November. So I would make it, you know, relatively quickly after the county pickup, right around the first week in November, and then take it from there.
Okay. Karen, you had some comments with regard to process?
Yeah, so we have a motion on the floor about the report. And my suggestion would be to bring a notice of motion later in the meeting for an additional leaf pickup. And then that would be voted on at the next meeting, which I'm sorry is not in front of me. Yes, it is October 26th, unless Matt has other comments. Procedurally, that is probably the way that we should go. And
Okay.
amending this resolution to include a pickup date is really substantially different than asking for a report.
Right, I agree. Matt?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I was just going to say that from a staff standpoint, if it's council's desire to have one pickup, I think I could understand that as direction, and then there could be a vote on a report. But I realize procedurally maybe that I think part of the issue is that we want to communicate it. So if it's the first week of November, you know, if we can start communicating the first week of November starting tomorrow, there's a benefit to that. But I realize also that procedurally maybe there's an issue with that. But I would say if it's council's wish that there is one pickup, I think that town roads department could understand that. Would be my take. I'm looking at Mike a little, but that'd be my take.
Okay. Mike, you want to weigh in?
I would suggest Karen's comments ring true. We're talking about allocation of additional resources. We had initially, as a township, endorsed the county program, and we're looking to do something supplemental to that. So I would propose that there be a notice of motion and then it be voted on by all of council. But that's that would be my suggestion. I would support Karen's direction around that.
Okay. So I know you've raised the flag about timing, Dan, but given the process, are you satisfied with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So we can so I can bring forward a notice of motion later on in regards to this issue. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we still have the motion requesting the report. Does any members of council have any further discussion on that? Okay. So I'll call the motion on that. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us now to our items for consideration. So please give us your list and we'll pull those out for further discussion. Steve, go ahead.
I'd like 3B. And
3B.
sorry, it's the EDO report.
So 3B, that's the farmer's market one?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 4B, the remote work resources for members of council.
Okay.
And then looks like 5A, the report from SIMA regarding the wastewater treatment plant quarterly report.
So 5A deals with the sewage allocations for 187 King. Is that one you want, Steve?
No, sorry, 5B, the quarter report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan?
What did Steve say? 5A? I'd like 5A and 5C, please.
So 5C, you said, Dan? You cut out a little bit on me.
Yeah, C, yes.
Okay. So we're going to do 5A, B, and C. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others? Okay, Sherry's shaking her head. Steve, you don't have anything further?
I'm good. Thank you, Mayor.
Nope. The fellows have picked out the ones that I needed as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So just to recap, we're going to pull out, we're not going to pull any from 1 or 2. We're going to pull 3B, 4B, 5A, 5B, and 5C. Anything further? Okay. So again, we'll go over it one more time just to make sure we're all on the same page. 3B, 4B, 5A, 5B, and 5C. Okay, so let's deal with all the others then. So we have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that all items listed under items for consideration on the October 13th, 2020 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us back to 3B. This is in regard to the farmers market. So I'm going to suggest that this recommendation is moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report EDO 2020-026 Wellington North Farmers Market. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Steve, did you want to dive in here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor Andy. I was just going to say, I think a good big congratulations to Pastor Harris. Should be a bit of a shout out for him publicly, because he does so much behind the scenes for this to get it going, and the change in venue, I think worked out extremely well. And from Dale's report, by all admission, the vendors there are almost lining up to be there. They enjoy it as well, and I think the timing of it is fantastic as well. So that's all I wanted to say was it's nice to have this in our community, and hearing the vendors say that this is one of the best farmers market that they attend in this area is a huge pat on the back for all those involved in it.
How appropriate for Thanksgiving, Steve.
Nailed it.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, Sherry, and then Dan.
So yeah, I also would like to say thank you to Harry and Dale for all their efforts in the farmers market. Glad to see that the time change didn't affect, it actually improved and enhanced the farmers market. Quite often when you have an event like that, changing the timing can sometimes not be as successful as it looks like this has. So just thank you very much to those that were involved and attended it many times this summer, and it was fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I just wanted to reiterate what everybody else has said, that thank you to Harry and Dale for all their efforts. It certainly looked like when I was there over the course of the summer a couple times, certainly looked like it was doing very well. So just once again, thank you, and look forward to seeing you carry on again next year.
Yeah, it's gradually built from when this started, and it seems to have developed some momentum. So that's fantastic. Okay, anything further before I call a motion? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that moves us to 4B. This is in regard to remote work resources for members of council. And I'm going to suggest that's moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report TR 2020-15, being a report on remote work resources for members of council. And further, the council directs staff to establish an allocation of $1,500 per member of council from the Safe Restart Agreement funding to the 2020 operating budget for the purposes of offsetting costs associated with IT enhancements presented by working remotely during the COVID-19 global pandemic. Open the floor for discussion. Steve, go ahead.
I don't even know how to say this, but I'm completely in disagreement of this. Is there a way that I don't need it, I don't want it. There's got to be a better way we can allocate this money. I mean, this is just my opinion. Yeah, would it be better to have broadband? Absolutely, in the rural areas. But I don't, do we have to accept this? or is there a better way we can use this safe restart money than petition out 1,500 per council? Again, that's my own opinion. I don't want it, I don't need it, and I kind of was quite surprised by this report.
Okay, so to answer your question, Steve, no, we don't have to accept it if council doesn't wish to. This probably came out of a couple of requests that I had made, thinking about continuing these meetings in a remote format. One couple of the things that I was thinking about that might make it better would be like a headset or something, so you guys wouldn't hear the crickets in my basement and my kids banging the dishes upstairs. And I've also been having a number of issues with the internet service providers, so I was just suggesting that not only me but other members of council maybe needed some additional resources in that regard as well. So that's really where it came from. It was just to allow members of council to address their needs, to try to facilitate and make this system work as the best possible. Absolutely, if members of council don't need it, even if we were to put it in place, that money doesn't get spent, and it will be still in the township's budget.
Okay, I'd be very curious to see how you bumped up your internet reception.
I haven't, it's a better tonight, but I'm still having ongoing problems, and I'm thinking it's going to cost some dollars to fix it. So that's one of my concerns personally. And I know that both you and Councillor Hearn have had significant problems as well. So
yeah, I mean, that's why I'm at the council chambers tonight, just because it was shaky or suspect at best. But okay, no, I'm glad that we don't have to take this money. So thank you for that. And I understand the reason for it, Mayor, but yeah.
Sherry?
So because the last time, I'm just going to ask this, I'm going to look at Mike for this question. The last time the council's computer equipment was upgraded, I passed on that because at that time I didn't think it was warranted. However, Mike has been at me to look at changing laptops. So would this be something that I could utilize those dollars for, as I had trouble connecting Wellington North Power's meetings because I don't think my laptop is compatible with that format. And some of the documentation that I get sent from staff, sometimes it has to be sent in a different format because I can't open it.
Mike?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. I think the intent from a staff perspective was to open up opportunities, recognizing that the remote environment that we're all part of now creates some challenges, and whether it's hardware like a laptop or headsets or things of that nature that would make your life easier working from a remote standpoint, that was the thinking around. And we didn't want to limit it in scale. We've had some back and forth with the ministry about the utilization of Safe Restart, and the idea of remote meetings is something that kind of came out of the whole pandemic. So we wanted to afford that opportunity based on some conversations that I've had with the mayor and with other members of council. We looked at an allocation, just kind of a broad opportunity that some we anticipated would participate and others would say no, everything's working fine on my end. But yeah, the short answer for Councillor Burke is certainly a hardware piece like laptop would be something that we could consider.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, Dan?
Well, I'm going to show my age here a little bit. My township computer hasn't worked that well. I've had it into Fry's a couple of times to have them kind of get it reconfigured, but we haven't had any luck with that. So I either generally print off the agenda or I have to use my wife's laptop. So I don't know. I just need to get my township laptop up and running here for me. I'm comfortable, you know, with all this paper, but it's and the internet here. I mean, you guys talk about your internet being, you know, wonky. Like it can be sporadic here in town too. And mine I don't know about Councillor Burke, but mine is very spotty here as well. So don't think you're on an island out there.
No, but at least, Dan, you haven't had to leave home to participate. Mike?
Yeah, part of this may help light a fire under some councillors in terms of upgrading their system. Like laptops don't last forever. You got to upgrade. You got to move along. I know everybody's scared of change, but you know, sometimes we got to do it. So that's an aside, but.
Okay. Any further discussion on this one then?
Not me.
Okay, so all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 5A now. This is the regarding sewage allocations for 187 King. And we're going to say that's moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. And the recommendation is the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report Ops 2020-25 being a report to grant sewage allocations for 187 King Street East in Mount Forest. Excuse me. And further, that council commit to allocating 10 sewage allocation units to King's Court Apartments, Inc. at 187 King Street East in Mount Forest. And further, that the sewer allocation units to King's Court Apartments, Inc. for 10 units at 187 King Street East in Mount Forest have an expiry of 36 months from the date of passage of this resolution, after which period the allocations, and then doesn't have, I think there's something missing here, at least on my sheet. And I'll just carry on, and that further that sewage allocation units be granted consistent with provisions of the Township Policy 012-19 Sewage Allocation Policy, and further that Council waive Clause 5 of the procedure of Township Policy 012-19. So I'm assuming that that recommendation should mean that they would give up their sewage allocation units after 36 months. Okay, even though I think there's some wording missing. Matt, is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. I think it should say allocations expire at the end of that clause if
Okay.
it's not used within the 36 months. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, so we've mover and seconder. We've heard the recommendation. Karen?
So if we're going to add something after which period the allocations expire, we'll just do a friendly amendment and put that in there. Is that the wording, Matt? Expire?
Yep, I think expire works. Yes.
Thank you.
So our mover and seconder are okay with that amendment? Okay, I think I suggested that was Steve and Sherry.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, so we've now got the recommendation fixed up. We've got a mover and a seconder, so we'll open the floor for discussion. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things in regards to the report. Thanks, thanks, Matt, for the report. As usual, well done. There seems to be, I guess, as I'm looking at it, an inconsistency, I guess, in regards to number 5, where you asked to waive clause number 5 in regards to the township policy. Why, like in that clause number 5 says council will consider all requests received in a given year at a meeting in April each year, evaluating each project's merit in light of the sewage allocation available. So why are we asking to have that removed and kind of circumventing? I guess it ends up, it looks like then that we're circumventing the policy.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox, and Councillor Ake, that is a good question. I think from a staff standpoint, 187 King Street East was working towards getting a shovel in the ground this fall. And I think that's why you see the recommendation that's before you. But as you've pointed out, the recommendation is inconsistent with the recently approved policy. And yeah, I think that's a struggle with the once a year sanitary allocation. But yeah, I think what you're saying is bang on as far as the recommendation is inconsistent with the policy. The reason was that there was going to be a shovel in the ground there this fall, and I no longer think that's the case.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
So if that's the case, let's say they decide or they're not going to start this fall, do we need to do that? Like, do we need to circumvent that clause, I guess? Or can we defer it? Can we defer the whole thing till such a time that they're ready to go?
Matt, do you want to dive in?
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox. I think we checked with the applicant today, and yeah, it was Darren who checked with the applicant. But I think an April award would meet the applicant's schedule. So I think if we wanted to defer this until April, consistent with the policy, that would be appropriate, and it wouldn't impact the developer.
Okay. And just
go ahead, Dan.
One other comment, Mayor Lennox. Just in regards to your report, Matt, I'm just wondering whether it would hurt when we start allocating these sewer allotments. Would it be okay or prudent to put in what our reserve capacity is at the time, so that we know if it's 600, let's say, and we're going to allocate 10, we know that it's going to drop by that number, just so we have kind of a ballpark figure as to what's kind of happening. That's all.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox. I think that's a good idea, and probably that's why the policy speaks to the April timeframe as it relates to those numbers are fresh in the mind, and they're kind of more front of mind. But yeah, to your point, Councillor Yake, certainly that's something that I should have included in the report, just as a frame of reference. So, no, fair comment.
Okay, Mike.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, I think good conversation around the policy itself. Yeah, the thinking with the April date was that we would have our annual report from our engineer showing us what the current allocations were. So that's why we looked at that April date. So I think your comments, Councilor Baker, are well heard. We're kind of, middle of the year. We're halfway, not to the next report yet to know what the actual numbers are. We're pretty secure, I think, from a Mount Forest standpoint. We feel that way from a staff position, but I think you're right from council's perspective. You don't really get those allocation numbers in front of you until typically it's late February. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're suggesting.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. Yeah, it's interesting you suggesting that, Dan. I had a somewhat similar conversation with Mike on Friday when we were talking about this particular recommendation. And I was suggesting some sort of a dashboard type of thing where we could, see how many units we have, how many we've allocated, what they've gone to when we're facing a decision like this to better judge it, because we're not as immersed into it as members of council as staff are on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sensing, and I'm looking for some guidance from council that you would like to defer this report. So if that's the case, I would need a motion to defer. Steve,
I can move that.
you would like to second that, Dan?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Before we do that, does anybody have any further discussion on this particular report before we deal with that? Okay. So a mover and a seconder to defer. So all those in, do we want to set a timeline on it?
What would be your recommendation, Mike or Matt?
Mike?
Yes, through you, Mayor Lennox. So not having the 2021 schedule in front of me, would it be safe for me to assume that council would like to deal with this when we deal with all the allocations requests, which is an April meeting of council? Is that sufficient?
Yeah, it's fine with me if that works.
Okay.
Like that's what we've said. Put April in policy, so until people start to know exactly when it is every year, then yeah, April's good with me.
Steve?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so that we have a motion then to defer this report until April of 2021. Anything more we need from a procedural perspective, Karen?
No.
Okay. Any further discussion on the deferral? Okay, all those in favor of deferring till April? Oh, sorry, Matt, just hang on a second. Matt, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just through you, Mayor Lennox, I would suggest that there's very little risk with deferring till April too, from the applicant standpoint, as far as the sewer credits are going to be there.
Okay, great, thank you. So all those in favor of deferral? That's carried. Thank you. So now we've got 5B. This is the report from SEMA regarding the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Project, Contract 1, Quarterly Report Q3 2020. Let's see, that's moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the report from SEMA regarding the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Project, Contract 1, Quarterly Report Q3 2020. We'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. It's always great to get these quarterly reports, and I think it's great when it's readily available for the public as well. And you know, the visuals are great. It looks like it's coming along really well, and I think it's a great report. I just had one question, and it was in the report saying that they're at about 75% where they thought they might be at about 85% completion. Is that going to really affect the November completion date, or where are we at with that? Just as a curiosity. I guess that's probably for you, Matt.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox. We had a construction meeting last week, and I think the date is still the date as far as it's the second half of November. The first week of November, there's going to be what they call site acceptance testing, which is going to be critical, like a critical threshold to get through. But yeah, the engineer has put that in their report as it relates to the schedule. But all indications were last week that, you know, from getting the sewer unit standpoint, we're still in good shape. I think they're still going to have work to do this spring, but I don't think that will impact our ability to have those sewer credits.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this report?
No.
Okay. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of pictures in there, and if pictures are worth 1,000 words, that's a huge report. So thanks for that. And yeah, it's good to see the visuals of it. It's a big dollar expenditure project, and it really isn't something that's that visible for most people. So seeing the pictures of it progressing, I think is good. To be reminded of all the work that's gone into this. So, and not to, I don't want to just talk about the work that went into the actual construction, but there's been a ton of work and background effort that's gone in over many years to do all the background necessary to get us to this point. So this is a big project, and we're nearing the end of this phase. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, and I hope we can find some way during these times to celebrate some of the successes of all that work over the past number of years going forward, even during these challenging times, because there's been many people involved, and it didn't happen. And specifically, a project of this size happening in a on-time type basis. A lot of people deserve congratulations. Team members really pulled together to make it happen. So I think, hopefully we can come up with some way to celebrate that, because it's good to celebrate those successes. That being said, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to 5C. This is in regard to the financial update. And I'm going to say that's moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report Ops 2020-27, being a report on the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 1 upgrade or financial update. I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I asked for this, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, and I'd like to thank, Adam and his team and all the staff that were involved in putting together the numbers and just showing, where we stand. I mean, it's a big project. There's a lot of dollars involved, and I just wanted to see kind of where we stood. It looks like we're in pretty good shape, and I guess once we get to substantial completion, or maybe at the end of this year or early next year, we'll see another report as to where we stand and whether we were, under budget, on budget, whatever the case may be. But anyway, just thank you. It was just the right length of report.
Not too much paper you had to print off, eh, Dan?
Hot and not too cold. It was just right. So thank you to all those. Thank you to all those involved.
Not too much.
Any other questions or comments from other members of council? It's pretty hard to top that one, though. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our items for discussion. We're on to notice of motion this evening. Dan, I think you have one, don't you?
Back to the notice of motion. Okay, so yes, I guess I have one. And I guess it will read that I don't know, are we prepared? We're not preparing a report.
Maybe Karen can put it together and you tell her if she's got it right. How's that?
Idea.
Something to the effect where you're wanting council to consider enhanced leaf pickup over and above what is being provided by the County of Wellington.
Yeah. But I think it needs to be tightened up a little bit there.
Okay, Mike's got his hand up. Why don't we let him have a crack at it?
So I think we need to be specific about loose leaf pickup, and I think we need to establish maybe not a specific date, but at least a time frame that we can quickly communicate if council endorses it on the 26th. So yeah, October 26th is our next council meeting. I believe the first pickup date by the County is also that same day. From what I heard before in terms of the conversation, waiting till November 23rd is not an option, but maybe the second week of November perhaps would be the second week of November. We say that? Township staff would complete a loose leaf pickup in the urban areas scheduled for the second week of November. How does that sound?
Dan?
Yeah, as long as we're not getting too late, I guess it's,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah.
I guess the second week in November is fine. That gives, I mean, if the weather stays half decent, then people, then we can get a lot done. So I would agree with that.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't want to propose a date too quickly after the council meeting on the 26th, because then we can't communicate it out. And Councilor Burke raised that as a concern, that we need to be able to communicate it. So there has to be a little bit of time in between, if that's fair.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so you okay with that, Karen? You got what you need?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll deal with that at the beginning of our meeting on the 26th. Any other notice of motion this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to community group meeting program report or other items of community concern. Anybody have anything they'd like to add? Steve?
I'm just going to say on page 28 of our agenda, you can see the Rec and Culture, Rec Parks and Leisure Committee, meeting that we had. Went really well, and that's basically about all I've had in the last little while since the last council meeting. So.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss? Dan, go ahead.
Just Councillor McCabe, maybe, I don't know, you might, if you could elaborate just a little bit on some of the arena stuff that we talked about with Tom. I think, I think they've done such a good job at trying to, manage the recreation part of the community in regards to ice and hall rentals and all recreational facilities. I think they've done, they did a terrific job, and I think they elaborated on that at the meeting, and I think that they certainly deserve a huge thanks for what they've done. Not only them, but our whole staff. But in regards to the recreation meeting, that was part of it.
Absolutely, and thanks for that, Councillor Yake. It wasn't. I'd be remiss, I suppose, if I didn't reply to that. Yeah, they've been exceptional. The ice is in. They've had conversations with our biggest users in trying to coordinate what's going to be happening in our arenas on the ice surfaces. And yeah, I mean, it's a moving target. It seems to be every week there's other rules that are happening with regards to the coronavirus. And yeah, they're very adaptable, very flexible, and Tom and the staff have been doing wonders. And I'd have to say a lot of it goes out to Mandy Jones as well. She's done a great job with the reports and keeping the Rec and Leisure Committee on track and well informed as well. So yeah, I would big tip of the hat to Tom and to all staff. It's not just in Rec that we have to deal with everything publicly. It goes right back to the people at the administration buildings and the public works employees as well. But for the most part, yeah, everything's been working as best as they can, and Tom keeps a good ship there, and is, like I say, is very adaptable to the new rules that are coming in.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to report on?
No.
Okay, I just had a few comments I wanted to make with not really a community group meeting, but I think this is an item of community concern, and that is Mike and I had the opportunity last week to sit in on a call with some of our local health professionals, talking about, of course, the second wave that we're experiencing of COVID-19. We had an update from Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Mercer, as well as some other updates from the health professionals in the hospital administration and so on. So as everybody knows, we're into our second wave with the COVID-19. And of course, I would say it's a very different flavor than it was back in March and April, in that there's a lot more knowledge now about what we can do to help protect each other, you know, AKA masks and keeping our social distance and those sorts of things. And they were talking about, you know, really, instead of trying to shut down our economy to try to address this, we're trying to implement these other health measures to try to mitigate the challenge we're facing. But I think it's still a very fluid situation, and if things get worse, we may have to again adapt to what may come our way. You know, I think about, you know, those recreation services we've just reopened, found ways to try to reopen those. We may have to revisit that, unfortunately, in the near future if things take a turn for the worse. One of the comments that Dr. Mercer made was, yeah, we're into the second wave right now, and hopefully we'll get through the second wave reasonably well, but we're probably at least a year from a vaccine, and we're likely going to experience a third wave. So this isn't going away anytime soon. I think we're all adapting the best we can. And the other comment that really struck me was with regard to one of the mental health professionals talked about second wave. What second wave? They haven't got through the first wave yet of some of the mental health challenges that people are experiencing because of, you know, these changing times. And you know, it's still on the increase in terms of the mental health challenges people are experiencing, and it's coming out in a variety of ways. You know, the person giving the report called it bad behavior, but, you know, one of the examples was people doing more aggressive driving or speeding, and the police were confirming that too is happening. I think, and the reason I bring it up is, you know, I think everybody's on edge, everybody's struggling with how to adapt to this, and we need to, as much as we possibly can, try to give people the benefit of the doubt and you know, help them navigate through this challenging time as we too are trying to navigate through it. I think we've, as a group, have done quite well in terms of adapting to the situation, and I think we have a big role to play in our leadership role in the community to help our community members and set an example for how they need to adapt to help prevent the spread of the virus and keep the second wave from not overwhelming our healthcare system again. So also we will be having a update meeting with all the county mayors and CAOs next week with Dr. Mercer again giving us an update, and I'll be sure to share with you some of the information that comes out of that. So, and you know, if you have questions, by all means, I'll be happy to entertain them now or in the future. You know, it's an uncertain time, and so don't hesitate to ask if there's questions you have or questions you're getting from residents. With that said, that's really all I wanted to report on tonight. So again, if you have questions, please feel free. With not seeing too many hands, so anybody else have anything else they'd like to report on this evening?
Go ahead, Dan.
Andy, well, thanks for that. I guess, you know, I mean, it's this obviously the difficult time.
Is that you, Steve? You're breaking up.
Oh, it's me. Dan.
So, sorry, maybe the problem's on my. Okay, sorry, Dan.
Okay. Thanks for that. I mean, all the information we can get is always, you know, always helpful. There's been a lot of questions around Halloween. How is that? Is that going to be dealt with at the county level or the provincial level or even the local level? people are going to start to wonder what's what's going to go on.
Sorry, I missed part of what you asked, Dan. Could you do that again?
Yeah, just around the Halloween piece, Andy, I don't know what people are going to be wondering what's going on. If that's
No.
the county piece.
Looks like I'm having technical difficulty, so.
Still there?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'll just try and fill in Andy's, the mayor's.
I'm sorry, I'm not catching anything.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so, yeah, Dan, I think you're right. There's going to be questions around Halloween piece. I think the answer from a staff perspective is, yeah, as long as people are practicing physical distancing, doing the hand wiping, sanitizing, all of those things, utilizing masks, that there's not going to be restrictions put in place, I guess is the simple answer. That I anticipate that Dr. Mercer's office will issue a statement just prior to Halloween, but will be probably consistent with that there's not going to be restrictions. Dr. Tam, the Canadian Medical Officer of Health, spoke today about, people needing some sort of social interaction, and that as long as people are doing it, without grouping together in large groups, and, that there's still going to be opportunities for Halloween participation. I know some people won't because of the fear associated with that, but I don't anticipate there'll be any restrictions around it at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, so the mayor lost connectivity at 9:05, so the minutes will show, Steve, that you assumed the chair.
Okay.
We still have quorum.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Hopefully that answers your question, Dan. I know there's I have my question I was going to ask, and Mike, it's probably sounds about the same as what the answer to Councillor Yates was. This was in regards to Remembrance Day ceremonies. Have you heard any word? I imagine it's probably pretty similar to what you just spoke about with Halloween, but
yeah, actually, I'll defer to Karen. I know she's had some contact, so go ahead, Karen.
So actually, I'm going to defer to Kathy. She has, Kathy, if you could unmute yourself and just let them know what you know about Remembrance Day services.
Okay. We've heard from Arthur and Mount Forest. Arthur is limiting their cenotaph services to Legion members, veterans, dignitaries, hoping to be able to live stream the services. They are wondering about placing a wreath. I think the wreaths are going to be placed already and names will just be mentioned. And we have contacted them to purchase. I'm waiting to hear back. Mount Forest, I'm not certain yet whether it's going to be virtual. We have had a letter from them asking someone to attend. So I will try to get some more clarification around that and get back to Councillor McCabe and Mayor Lennox.
thanks, Kathy. I guess that kind of goes in line with the events that they would have at night as well. I know we've attended dinners and stuff like that in the past, so I imagine that's probably out of the question as well. Or are they just going to limit those numbers that are allowed at the nighttime ceremonies?
We have not heard anything about the dinners, so I think it would be safe to assume they're not happening, but I can get clarification on that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks very much. So Karen, you're gonna have to help me out here a little bit. I don't have any cheat sheets in front of me.
So the next, so I guess you would ask if anyone else has anything to add.
Does anyone else, Councillor Burke or Councillor Yates, do you have anything to add? Go ahead. Karen.
So I haven't had any meetings recently, but I do see that on the meetings notices and announcement that the Mount Forest BIA has a meeting on October the 20th at 8 a.m. And we are also having another Mount Forest Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee on October the 27th at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you. I see that the mayor is back, so I will let you take the chair back again.
So the minutes will show that the mayor assumed the chair again at 9:09.
Okay, where are we at?
We are still going on the roundtable community group meeting, seeing if anyone has anything else to add.
Okay. Anything further on that? Okay. I'm not trying to prove the point that I have internet problems.
You have the $1,500, Andy.
So we're on to bylaws now.
Yes, that is correct.
So we have just the one bylaw this evening, and I'm going to say it's moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that bylaw number 87-20 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. And any questions or comments on that one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're now to closed meeting section of our agenda. And here we are. Recommendation moved by Sherry, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 9:11 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 specifically. Item C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And we'll deal with the report EDO 2020-024 municipal land sale, and we'll deal with the review of the closed meeting minutes from September 28th. Okay, all those in favor?
1 second, Andy, sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
Did we, and I might have missed this and I apologize, did we approve bylaw number 88-20?
That's the confirming bylaw.
Okay, all right.
Not yet, Steve.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm going to call the vote for moving it closed. All those in favor? Carried. I don't see Dan, but we still had enough, so we're in closed. Okay.
Mayor Lennox, can we recess just for, so I get everybody locked out and locked down and stop recording?
Sure. So we'll recess for 5 minutes, Karen?
Thank you.